This is the Cold War, year by year. A digest of the events of America's longest conflict. Chapter 5, 1949. Having won the presidential election of 1948 in a stunning, come-from-behind victory over Thomas Dewey, Harry Truman was sworn in for his first full term as President of the United States on January 20th, 1949. As the final year of the 1940s began, the battle lines of the Cold War were clearly drawn. From Europe to Asia, from the Middle East to the homeland, on one side, democracy and capitalism, on the other, dictatorship and communism. In the aftermath of World War II, the United States had emerged as the world's only superpower. But in the East, events were taking place that would soon give the Soviet Union the rights to claim that title as well, raising the stakes of the conflict to unprecedented and dangerous levels. April 4th, 1949. The North Atlantic Treaty is signed in Washington, D.C., leading to the establishment of NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization.
The Russian cynical blockade of Berlin had brought Europe to the brink of war. It was at last clear that only a strong defensive alliance could deter them from further adventures. On 4 April 1949, the North Atlantic Treaty was signed by Norway, Denmark, the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, France, Italy, Portugal, the United Kingdom, Iceland, Canada, and the United States. This union of 12 nations became known as the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or more simply, NATO.
NATO would play a crucial role in maintaining political stability in Europe and deter potential military aggression by the Soviet Union well into the 21st century.
Die Blockade ist aufgehoben. Berlin lebt wieder.
A month later, on May 12th, the Soviet blockade of Berlin that began the previous year ended with the reopening of access routes into Berlin. This was an early victory in the Cold War by the Western powers and would set the template for future confrontations between the United States and the Soviet Union in the years to come. On May 31st, the first trial of Alger Hiss began in New York City. Hiss had been a high-ranking diplomat in the U.S. State Department who was involved in the planning and organization of the Yalta Conference in 1945. Whittaker Chambers, a former U.S. Communist Party member, testified under subpoena before the House Un-American Activities Committee that Hiss had secretly been a communist while in federal service and had acted as a spy for the Soviet Union. This accusation led to Hiss being indicted by a federal grand jury.
I would like to point out that the man who calls himself Chambers has, by his own testimony, been peddling to various government agencies for 10 years or so stories about me.
This was one of the first major spy trials in the Cold War and was instrumental in shaping the public's perceptions of the communist threat. The trial will end with a deadlocked jury. In June, several Hollywood celebrities, including Dorothy Parker, Danny Kaye, Frederick March, John Garfield, Paul Muni, and Edward G. Robinson, are named in a Federal Bureau of Investigation report as Communist Party members. The disclosure of this list of celebrities and their identification as communists would shine an unwelcome spotlight on the movers and shakers in the movie factories in Hollywood and contribute to the growing atmosphere of paranoia that had begun to grip some politicians in Washington and the public at large. On June 14th, Albert II, a rhesus monkey, became the first mammal to enter space, riding aboard a V-2 rocket launched from Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico.
0 hour approaches. They're off at 2,000 miles an hour. Special equipment broadcasts Albert's physical reactions back to the test station.
Albert died upon re-entry after a parachute failure caused his capsule to crash to the ground at high speed. The space race had begun. On August 29th, the Soviet Union conducted its first successful test of an atomic bomb. The test took place at the Semipalatinsk test site in Kazakhstan. The nuclear arms race had begun. On September 7th, the Federal Republic of Germany, also known as West Germany, was officially founded. Konrad Adenauer, the former mayor of Cologne and a strong anti-communist, was elected to be the first federal chancellor. On October 1st, the People's Republic of China was officially proclaimed by Mao Zedong, following the victory of the Chinese Communist Party over the nationalist forces in the Chinese Civil War. This added a quarter of the world's population to the communist camp, and greatly increased the concerns of the Western powers regarding the global spread of communism. Later that month, on October 7th, the Soviet-supported German Democratic Republic, also known as East Germany, was officially established. Germany was now divided into two separate nations, Democratic West Germany and Communist East Germany. As the world turned the corner into the 1950s, the stakes had risen dramatically in the global chess game that was the Cold War. Coming up, the 1950s. The Cold War goes hot in Korea. A communist revolution breaks out in Cuba. Gary Powers is shot down over Russia. And America takes the lead in the culture war with the invention of rock and roll. All that and more next time on The Cold War, Year by Year.